Power. From where does power truly spring? Raw strength, skill and technique, sheer determination and courage? Or perhaps the mere notion of having something to protect is what grants one the truest form of strength. What? Whoa, hey, no need to be so uptight, man. Hey, look, you don't have to talk about all this power stuff anymore. We have melee influence now, that's all we need. So, Gara and Kora, right? New weapons, new proto-frames, all that. But what I was most excited for was the Pseudo-Exalted weapon rework. Okay, I was actually most excited for the Kodahima, but Pseudo-Exalteds were a close second. This update saw a large amount of changes get rolled out for all Exalted weapons. Arcane enhancements, Acolyte mods, things that had been long restricted from Exalted weapons were now all usable, with Exalted stances also giving bonus capacity points to make modding easier. Now, I could go over every single reworked Exalted weapon and pretend that there have been a bunch of massive changes and nuances that make them the most meta things in existence that you need to build right now, but that would just be 10 minutes of me trying to find different ways of saying melee influence build. Besides, what I'm really interested in is how this update has reworked Pseudo-Exalted weapons. But what exactly is a Pseudo-Exalted weapon, It's a word that gets thrown around everywhere in external discussions around Warframe, but in-game, its terminology is pretty sparse. A Pseudo-Exalted weapon refers to an ability of a Warframe that used to scale off of mods on your equipped melee weapon. Back in the day, every Exalted weapon used to function like this: melee, secondary, and primary weapons. However, Exalted weapons had different properties and restrictions compared to traditional weapons, meaning that if you wanted Excalibur's Exalted Blade to be good, it usually meant modding and equipping a melee weapon that would suck to use on its own as a result. Eventually, DE stepped in and added modding capabilities to only channeled Exalted weapons. That left some abilities to fall into the cracks. Ashe, Gara, Kora, and the GOAT, Atlas, who all had abilities that did scale off of an equipped melee weapon, but took the form of one-off ability casts. This actually worked out for the Pseudo-Exalted gang for a while. In Karnon weapon enhancements, upgrades that increased the base stats of pre-existing weapons actually could transfer their base stat increases to a Pseudo-Exalted melee weapon, for some reason. Probably just another bug-turned feature that's given us many Warframe mainstays that we know and love. But it made these abilities actually usable for the first time in a long while, so everyone just kinda rolled with it. Until now. In the Gara and Kora update, all Pseudo-Exalted weapons are following suit to their channeled Exalted brethren and becoming fully moddable, along with being able to equip mods that they previously couldn't benefit from, as well as arcanes, and honestly, good. For the longest time, Pseudo-Exalteds have had the distinction of being simultaneously one of the strongest options in Warframe, while at the same time, being some of the most obscure. Sure, you might have been able to find out that this random ability on this single Warframe scaled off of your melee weapons equipped mods if you looked inside the ability section, but does that tell you what mods work on it? Of course not. This update fixed that. Not only is the option to mod your Gigaton Fists out in full display, but if a mod doesn't work on it, it won't show up on the mod screen. Perfect. So, what actually changed with Pseudo-Exalted weapons? I mean, they were pretty strong already, right? And how do you make what is effectively an ability cast mesh with the entirety of Warframe's melee mods? Well, the original Pseudo-Exalted combo system was only on Atlas's landslide fists, and to be honest, it was kinda meh. Basically, it incentivized repeated casts of a single ability within a very tight window that only got shorter if you modded for negative duration. This multiplied the damage of your punches by a scaling amount. These weapons could also scale off of the regular melee combo counter, which was difficult when getting 1 point of combo multiplier required spending like 20 energy, but the weapons needed Blood Rush to scale, so folks found their workarounds. And that was it. Yeah, not much to write home about. Nowadays though, all 4 Pseudo-Exalted frames have been given a combo counter, which now scales to the melee standard of a 12x multiplier rather than just 4. Furthermore, each cast of the ability adds 20 to the combo counter, letting you scale up a lot faster and higher. Also, unlike normal melee weapons, the combo meter does affect the damage of Pseudo-Exalted weapons, in addition to now functioning alongside combo scaling mods like Weeping Wounds and Blood Rush. All that essentially to say, we're so freaking back. Starting with the most unique of our new Pseudo-Exalted weapons, Ashe's Shadow Clones. In addition to getting literally every single one of his abilities buffed, everyone's favorite Railjack-locked Warframe, still insane by the way, now has a quicker Bladestorm that can be directly modded with So Ashe's Bladestorm does finisher damage, a previously hidden damage type that does not benefit from elemental or physical damage mods. Hey guys, Zach from the future here. I'm just stopping in to let you know that either DE changed something or I was a dang fool, because Ashe's Bladestorm can totally accept elemental damage mods. Not physical though, for some reason, but that's not really gonna help you much for reasons that I'm about to mention. So yeah, back to the video. This thing also has, minimal status and crit numbers, meaning in order to Bladestorm the fuck out, you need to stack as much damage and finisher damage as possible. Diminishing returns be damned, I am stacking Pressure Point and Condition Overload. I tried to get a little bit of cheese in with Melee Duplicate and Blood Rush, since I figured I could at least use that slight crit chance for a second finisher hit and guaranteed slash proc, but I really didn't notice much of a change. But yeah, new Bladestorm, very nice. Still one-shots high-level enemies as intended. Now, the real reason I made this video. I think one of my biggest fears with this update was that Atlas's landslide would get nerfed. I mean, with the old Incarnate Inherit methods, I was hitting multi-million crits that could clear entire rooms. Could streamlining the process and relying solely on weapon mods truly match that? Yes it can. Landslide's biggest shortcoming was its base crit and status chance being 5%, making any form of scaling without an Incarnon impossible. Now though, Landslide has a base 15% status chance and 35% base crit chance. This, plus being able to use previously restricted mods and arcanes, alongside the combo meter scaling up to 12 instead of 4, means that Landslide is bigger and better than ever. You know what else is bigger and better than ever? Rumbled. The forgotten little brother of Atlas's kit, Rumbled is a conclave and PvE augment that promises Atlas the ability to turn into a Rumbler. It's not that cool, he just gets covered in rocks and loses the ability to jump in exchange for some overguard. In defiance of God and man, this ability also removes Atlas's ability to use any of his weapons, replacing your guns with a rock throw and melee attacks with a funny ragdoll slam. Both of these attacks used to scale off of your equipped melee weapon back in the day, and in what is either a show of divine generosity or maybe some cruel form of psychological torture, DE remembered Rumble during Techart Encore, changing the augment to draw its stats from Atlas's new Landslide weapon, while also letting it generate and benefit from the new combo meter. Unlike Landslide, however, Rumbled did not get increased base stats, so the rock and slam still do no damage, and despite having good scaling, 200 times 0 is still 0. But hey, some people have fun with rock. Somehow. I'm sure they'll be happy about these changes, but I swear to God, if one more of you mentions how you can use a Toxin Inherit wall latch build to one-shot Demolists with the rock, I'm gonna crash out. The Gara and Kora I don't know too well. Their abilities synergize much more with the rest of their kits than Ash or Atlas. Gara is to spread as much broken glass everywhere as possible, and Kora to chain up everything tighter than deodorant at a Walmart. However, both Kora's Whip Claw and Gara's Shattered Lash are insanely good, even without synergizing with the rest of their kits, something they owe largely to their crazy range and melee influence. Actually, scratch that. Everything here, except Ash, is stronger because of melee influence, which... oh fine, whatever, let's tangent. Melee influence is an arcane added in Whispers of the Walls that has a 20% chance to activate when you get an electrical proc with a melee weapon. Once active, influence will spread every status effect applied by your melee weapon to every enemy within a 20-meter radius. And yes, hitting multiple enemies with one swing does double up on the effect. Setting an entire room on fire is funny, but Influence synergizes best with Gas and Blast status procs, which cause AoE damage around the enemy they proc on. These procs also scale off the base damage of the hit that causes them. And what are some newly updated weapons with the potential for incredible base damage that just got the ability to apply arcanes? Yeah. Is melee influence good? Yes. Is it fun? Hell yes, I love my One-Punch Atlas build that explodes an entire room of Steel Path 1999 enemies. But the problem is that Influence is the leading build for Pseudoexalted weapons now, and nothing else comes even close. Like, sure, you could put melee exposure on Landslide instead to synergize off repeated ability casts and get 240% corrosive damage, or you could just explode everything. My biggest gripe with this isn't even the idea of something being overpowered, it's just the homogeneity of it all, you know? Atlas, Kora, and Gara in concept have very different Pseudo-Exalted abilities, but once you throw Influence into the equation, they all become the same thing. Just a room deleter button, which, I don't know, does feel like a bit of a tragedy. Okay, melee influence-related psychosis aside, I think this rework was a huge success for Pseudo-Exalted weapons. It managed to keep their insane power that comes from being able to mod and upgrade an ability, while also eliminating the knowledge barrier of how to build them properly. So, what's next, right? I mean, now that the foundation of Pseudo-Exalteds has finally become stable, my hope is that we'll see more content relating to these weapons in the future. Maybe another Warframe with a Pseudo-Exalted weapon? I mean, that might be a bit of a long shot. The last Pseudo-Exalted frame we got was Kora, 7 years ago. And I mean, at this point, it seems like DE is much more inclined to just make Warframe abilities good by default, instead of requiring modding and resource investments. Something that would be cool, I think, is having Exalted weapon-only mods, right? I mean, think about it. We have this super unique category of not exactly weapons, but not exactly abilities. You can do a lot with that. Maybe mods that combine damage and ability stats, ability efficiency on kill mods. I mean, the sky's the limit. It would also help dehomogenize exalted weapons from the rest of the melee arsenal, for previously mentioned influence-related reasons. Well, that's all I got. TechArt Encore is still fresh, and I have boy bands to slay and Kim messages to fumble. Also, make sure to check out my Twitch, where I will be locking 20 melee influence users in a room together and forcing them to use a Mercy Finisher build. Toodles!